All right, we'll get started. How's everybody doing today? Good? I thought as an icebreaker, we'd go around the room and everybody tell the most embarrassing moment in their life. Okay, ready? Just kidding. That could take the whole session, I'm sure. My name is Mark Pendolino. I am with PTP. We are downstairs. Come by and visit us. We are a professional services firm. We help agencies, departments, and other organizations with their customer experience systems integration and security and support. We're technology agnostic, so we kind of take a holistic view. And I appreciate being here today. I wanted to share a story around what's happening in citizen engagement within the government entity. And it's interesting, I think Verizon's doing a presentation right now with the exact same title, so I'd be curious to see what they're about. So somebody maybe slip out here and take some notes and come back. Volunteers? Okay, never mind. So agenda real quickly, just going to talk a little bit about what the experience journey looks like, kind of take a look at what's happening as far as change, looking at the strategy and some of the challenges that we face, the digital direction, what's happening between automation and humans. I'll do a little case study on California Franchise Tax Board, who we've worked with pretty in depth in the past few years, and then just a look ahead. So the journey. So obviously, the citizen journey, customer journey is always changing. And you know, I'm a citizen, you're a citizen, everyone is. We've gotten used to using technology to deal with companies, with each other. We're starting to expect more personalized service from the companies that we do business with. Think about Apple and any other retail type of organizations. And people are starting to expect this from the government agencies that they do work with also, that they interact with also. That expectation is increasing, obviously. So why should you care? Well, it's about trust, and I know I don't have to bring up a lot of politics in this particular session, but the trust in government has obviously seen a fairly steady decline. This is some stats from the Pew Research, more federal government, but as you can see, again, another more recent survey from Pew, just based on who's been in the administration, the direction downward, and then even state government, which I think has a much higher trust rating, is still seeing some decline. So it's important for us, I think, to look at building back that trust with our citizens, because there's a lot of benefits. And why? Why does it matter? Well, the citizens that we work with, if they're losing trust and they're not engaging as much, we're going to be spending a lot more of our valuable resources and time working with people that are frustrated, handling the people that are making the most noise, losing the investment of those citizens when we need it the most to drive that agenda, losing resources or funding due to the lack of support from your constituencies, and then just gaining that negative perception that will start to hinder the process as we move forward. And how do you win trust back? Well, I think there's obviously a lot of ways, but some very important ways are providing the engagement that they seek, giving them access to their information that they're looking for, giving them ways to self-serve, feeling more comfortable about interacting with the agencies that they're required to, and that's part of where this direction and where we're seeing in citizen engagement as far as technology and the tactics that are being put in place. And the one thing that we've learned, I think, even in our work and the companies that we do business with, is that the customer experience and the success of that organization or that department or that agency, they are pretty inextricably linked. The higher that experience is for a customer or a citizen, then the more apt that agency or that company is going to succeed at their objectives. So landscape of change. So there's obviously a lot of change happening in how we engage with our citizens, how we engage with customers. I'll give you some examples. Chatbots, I'm sure you've probably heard a little bit about this. In a recent survey, I think this was 2016, 71% of consumers indicated they want to be able to solve most of their issues themselves. And that's a benefit to them. It's also a benefit to the company, the agency that they're working with. 49% prefer all customer service to be conducted via text messaging, which is very new, right? A few years ago, you wouldn't have seen that, but a lot of people are on text now. I know I am. And people that are citizens are obviously engaging in this type of chatbot with other technology they use, other social platforms. Facebook Messenger, for example, has about 30,000 chatbots in use right now with different companies that have signed up to provide that service on Facebook for their customers. So people are getting really used to this type of activity and are starting to seek that in all of their engagements. So one example of that is a city of Mesa, Arizona. They use Aspect software, and it's an automated text-based consumer engagement solution, which is basically a chatbot. It's a way to automate how their citizens work with them. They can use the system to manage their accounts. They can pay their bills through their mobile app, and they can get answers to just very basic questions. And that's been a big success for them in the sense that less effort, less human resource effort is put into some of these more simple transactions, and people are getting the access to the information they need without tying up an agent or someone on the phone. Another very simple change that's happening is just language simplification, or just changing from an IVR perspective, your outbound phone system or your inbound when people are calling. If there's an automated system there, just making it easier for users to find and resolve what they're looking for without tying up a lot of resources. It's simplistic when you think about it, but it's a lot of, if there's more complexity that you're going to have in that interaction, the more language, the more options, the harder it is for people to get done what they need to get done and what they want to do themselves. So this type of simplification is starting to see more ground in a variety of places. And again, one example of that is the Minnesota Department of Revenue. And they won an innovation award for what they called the Plain Language Project. And it was essentially just an IVR redesign where they cut down the complexity of the language. They did some redesign to their website as well, where they consolidated 5 pages down to 1. And they're seeing a huge increase in people being able to solve what they need to solve on the first call. Obviously, 94% of that large number, nearly 750,000 people, are able to get what they need and get it done quicker. And this is just based on simplifying the process and simplifying the language that they're engaging with. And then automated agents as well. So I'm sure you've probably all dealt with this or heard of this. It's basically taking a lot of your routine tasks, automating that process using an automated agent through your IVR. You can gather more customer interaction data and use that to improve your future service. Start making kind of predictions based on their behavior. And obviously, it allows you to increase your agent performance because then they can now focus on the more high-value interactions and transactions than all the quicker, low-value transactions that a lot of people are seeking. They're just asking some basic questions, or they're just looking for some information about their account. The more that this is automated, the more the agents, I think, can perform better and the more value to the organization. One example of that is state of Utah. So they did something interesting. They were actually the first state, from my research, to develop an iPhone app. And now they are using Amazon Echo to respond to users' verbal requests. Everybody know what Amazon Echo is? Yeah. So basically now people can use their verbal requests with this newer technology to do a lot of things that they want to do, just basically controlling, they call them skills, so they can ask more questions, they can get more automated answers, and they're doing this through the use of this newer technology. And I think that quote is interesting from the CTO there at the state of Utah. Instead of kind of waiting for everybody to catch up, he wants to be where the trend is headed, and looking at some of these new technology, the newer technology that's coming out, and seeing how they can take that and use it better. They are having their developers in Utah actually expand Echo's skills, their sets of questions or directions, and building that out into their platform specific to their user needs. So I think that's a great trend to be watching and seeing what happens there. And then this is in the UK, but I thought I'd bring this up just because it got a lot of attention. It's the Enfield Council in the UK. They're deploying this, it's a little bit controversial. This is Amelia, and she is the first artificial intelligent agent communicating like a human using natural language. So they've deployed this. It's designed by an American company called IPsoft. It's never been used in the British public sector before. It's not replacing human agents, but a lot of people are a little bit worried about that. However, they're recognizing that it's a lot more cost-effective to use this persona-based agent, Amelia, to handle some of the basic transactions, get residents' information, help them fill out forms, you know, a number of things they can do just from their computer or their phone without having to actually engage a live agent. So really quickly, I wanted to show you, have a couple of quick short videos that just show what is possible, some of the things that you can do that are fairly straightforward to give citizens an opportunity to help self-serve and interact in the way they want to. So one idea is what we call channel selection. Let me just play really quick. So that's a very basic, you know, I want to go there. I can proactively alert my base to say, hey, you need to update your information. How do you prefer to be contacted? And then having that data, you can start contacting that person in the way that they prefer, and they are more likely to then resolve the tasks that they have. Next step of that would be now the self-service portion where this person has elected to be communicated via text. Now we can proactively notify her to take charge of something that's outstanding. Anybody want to dance during that song? I kind of felt like I was, you know. But that's basically, again, very, very straightforward, something you're used to probably seeing in the interactions you have with other organizations. Government entities are starting to move in that direction. And then that gives a very simple way for that person to resolve an outstanding balance, do that over SMS, which is very easy for them to take care of. They don't tie up any agent resources. They're happy, and the entity then is able to collect on that revenue that's outstanding. So I'm going to switch now a little bit to talk about the challenges that we face and the strategy that we need to get in place to resolve them. Start with a quote from Gartner. Had a couple of little bit of research with Gartner, and we work with them and talked to an analyst over there and got a lot of good info. They're doing work, obviously, in the government sector and collecting data. And this is a bit of a long quote. I'll read it really quick. But basically, improving poor customer perception is a tough challenge facing the government. However, if the government wants to deliver competent, efficient, and responsive service in a 21st century digital way, it must apply best practices from the marketing industry. This is to not only streamline interactions with citizens, but to also transform agency mindsets and approaches to focus on what citizens want. So I thought that was an interesting statement just for the fact that I understand marketing, and I know, a lot of it is based on understanding who you're dealing with, delivering the right message at the right time and the way they prefer, and so you're starting to see a lot of that come through in just basic customer experience. One of the things that they also are predicting, Gartner in a report that was released in January, is that about 30% of today's government transactions will be gone. So a lot of things that people are doing right now, they're predicting they won't be doing those anymore. And about 20% will be transactions that currently don't exist. So new things that are cropping up that they can now take care of. I'm not sure where the other 10% goes, but I'm sure they'll figure that out at some point. So one of the ways they map that out, I'm not going to go into too much detail around this, but they look at it as a marketing approach, that you become more customer experience aware. I think that's the biggest piece of it, more customer or citizen-centric mindset. You identify who those customers are and their opportunities. You establish what that experience looks like, a strategy and a governance around it, and then obviously execute on that. And underneath that, of course, there are a number of different tasks that feed into that. Again, this is Gartner's way of defining it. But it's very similar to a marketing approach, and this is how they look at it. The biggest piece, I think, towards the end, as you can see where they're executing, is really understanding what that customer journey is, what that holistic view of the citizen or the customer is. And that's one of the things I think that really came through in a lot of my interactions with the analysts and a lot of research, is that agencies are struggling a little bit with understanding what that entire journey looks like, understanding who they're working with, what their actions are, what they need, and it really entails being able to kind of put a team together to understand who you're working with, understand what that journey is, and then you can start to execute on what you're going to deliver. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but this is basically, what we're calling experience management to help you kind of drive what your roadmap is. And obviously, it's a customer-centric vision. It's a lot about the data that you can maintain. As you can see, the quotes are more, customer-centric. Listen to me once. There is, client and service management, both in store and online. Make sure their interactions are personalized. Campaign management, be relevant and respect my privacy. Privacy, obviously, huge. Analytics, know what I want to do before I do it. I mean, a lot of times we start to have these expectations that you're going to have my information when I call. You're going to know what I'm ready to do, and it's going to be easy for me to do that. Relationship management is huge. Treat me well. We always try to do that. And then marketing resource management may not necessarily apply here, but just being able to optimize what they're receiving, when they want to receive it, controlling what they choose to see in the right way. So one more quick quote, I think this was interesting as well, getting that holistic view. There's a big need to really focus on that data. The data from those customer interactions and what they want, what they're doing, what their preferences are, and be able to utilize that data, that big data per se, and make sure you wrap it back into the enterprise and how you start treating everybody else. They say digital government relies on the use and reuse of data and analytics to simplify transactions for end users. And that's a big challenge right now. There's a lot of disparate data. There's different departments and different silos, and getting that across all of your systems is a challenge. But it's not impossible. So one of the things that I tend to have encountered is people start to get a little nervous when they think, well, we're going to automate everything, and then what are our people going to do? What about the humans? Are we going to lose jobs? That was the big controversy with Amelia in the UK, was that you're going to put an automated person or automated agent in here, and then everybody's going to lose their jobs. Not necessarily the case. There's a gentleman by the name of David Autor, he's an economist at MIT. Interesting guy. And he gave a TED Talk, which I collected a little snippet of it, that somewhat addresses this concern about automation taking over for humans. So I thought I would play this to give you some context.
Here's a startling fact. In the 45 years since the introduction of the automated teller machine, those vending machines that dispense cash, the number of human bank tellers employed in the United States has roughly doubled from about 250,000 to 500,000, to 250,000 in 1970 to about 500,000 today, with 100,000 added since the year 2000. These facts, revealed in a recent book by Boston University economist James Besson, raise an intriguing question. What are all those tellers doing? And why hasn't automation eliminated their employment by now? If you think about it, many of the great inventions of the last 200 years were designed to replace human labor. Tractors were developed to substitute mechanical power for human physical toil. Assembly lines were engineered to replace inconsistent human handiwork with machine perfection. Computers were programmed to swap out error-prone, inconsistent human calculation with digital perfection. These inventions have worked. We no longer dig ditches by hand, pound tools out of wrought iron, or do bookkeeping using actual books. And yet, the fraction of US adults employed in the labor market is higher now in 2016 than it was 125 years ago in 1890, and it's risen in just about every decade in the intervening 125 years. This poses a paradox. Our machines increasingly do our work for us. Why doesn't this make our labor redundant and our skills obsolete? Why are there still so many jobs? I'm going to try to answer that question tonight. And along the way, I'm going to tell you what this means for the future of work and the challenges that automation does and does not pose for our society. Why are there so many jobs? There are actually two fundamental economic principles at stake. One has to do with human genius and creativity. The other has to do with human insatiability, or greed, if you like. I'm going to call the first of these the O-ring principle, and it determines the type of work that we do. The second principle is the never get enough principle, and it determines how many jobs there actually are. Let's start with the O-ring. ATMs, automated teller machines, had two countervailing effects on bank teller employment. As you expect, they replaced a lot of teller tasks. The number of tellers per branch fell by about 1/3. But banks quickly discovered it also was cheaper to open new branches, and the number of bank branches increased by about 40% in the same time period. The net result was more branches and more tellers. But those tellers were doing somewhat different work. As their routine cash handling tasks receded, they became less like checkout clerks and more like salespeople, forging relationships with customers, solving problems, and introducing them to new products like credit cards, loans, and investments. More tellers doing a more cognitively demanding job. There's a general principle here. Most of the work that we do requires a multiplicity of skills and brains and brawn, technical expertise and intuitive mastery, perspiration and inspiration, in the words of Thomas Edison. In general, automating some subset of those tasks doesn't make the other ones unnecessary. In fact, it makes them more important. It increases their economic value.
Thoughts on that? Interesting? Yeah. I thought that was interesting because I always thought ATMs, while they're just completely taken, there's no more bank tellers. What are they going to do with bank tellers? But the reality is, like you described, that now you're able to do your high value work, more high value work, and you're automating the lower level transactions.